Hello and welcome back to the Regretful Penguin. I am 21 and friends, I'll be honest, I don't want to review this book. And I'm recording this for the second time because my audio recorder got the wrong input hardware, so yay me. Anyway, before we begin, be sure to subscribe to my channel, otherwise you'll have to play kissing chess for the rest of your life and with people you don't like. I haven't read many romanticists. As a matter of fact, I've only read two so far, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas and Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. You can find both reviews on my channel, I trash them quite thoroughly, so I hope you will enjoy them. Now, these books are bad. The plot is all over the place. In the case of ACOTAR, I feel the narration is impossibly stretched to reach those 400 and plus pages, whereas for Once Upon a Broken Heart, the narration suffers an overdose of useless details. The love stories are cheesy, full of cliches, and have vague characters as protagonists. By vague, I mean that they're not really the deepest people you'll meet in your reader's life. But I have to give them one thing. They are somewhat entertaining. There are some things that made me laugh, even if maybe they weren't supposed to be funny, like Farah painting Tamlin as Pig in ACOTAR, or the kissing chess and his royal handsomeness in Once Upon a Broken Heart. Between the what the fuck is this and why do people like these books, there were indeed some, okay, this is funny. So that also explains why I'm willing to go through some more pain and read the other books in both series, because I have hope that there will be stupid things like that on the way. But in today's Victim, there is nothing. I was expecting another cheesy romantasy with cheesy protagonists, cheesy descriptions, and all the cheese you can find on this planet, but I wasn't expecting to be bored to death. So I'll do something different today. A shorter catalog, it's not really short, but anyway. A shorter catalog of what went wrong with Belladonna by Adalyn Grace, a novel that suffers from an identity crisis, a romantic relationship which is everything but romantic, and pages of literally nothing. Belladonna was first published in 2022 by Hodder and Stoughton in the UK and by Little Brown in the US in the same year. It holds an average of 4.02 based on circa 85,000 ratings. Most of the ratings are 4 stars, which baffles me, but then I remember that taste plays a major role in these reviews, mine included. Time to remind you that this video is a reflection of my own opinions, so take it with a grain of salt. If you've read Belladonna, I'd like to know why you liked it or not. Long story very short. We're in a realistic setting, I'd say Victorian England. Of course, there are paranormal elements, but overall there's not much of fantasy elements. Everything begins at a manor called Foxglove, where basically there's a baby shower but with a baby already there. I have no idea what such a party is called. Baby presentation. It's what in Italy would be the equivalent of christening. The baby is called Signa Farrow and is the richest baby in the world. Wow, she is the only baby ever who at the ripe age of 2 months old already has fully formed and colored irises. And just because things weren't ridiculous enough as they were, Signa is a baby Bowie because one iris is blue and one iris is gold, whatever gold means when it comes to eyes. Death, who is referred to as a man, appears and everybody gets poisoned and dies at the party except Signa. Signa spends the rest of her life from guardian to guardian because they all die, while she can't get physically hurt because Death the man spares her every time. So Signa is a mix between Jessica Fletcher and Claire Bennett from Heroes, falling from the stairs, snapping her neck, and despite everything, being a survivor. Also, she can see and talk to spirits or souls. There's a difference between the two, but I'm not sure I care enough about it. She ends up at the Thorngrove Manor, where her uncle Elijah resides with his 2 kids, Percy and Blythe. Her aunt, her dad's sister, is dead from poisoning, and Blythe is experiencing the same symptoms as her mother. Signa needs to solve the case, and she will get the help of the spirit of her aunt and from Death himself, who she can summon every time she ingests belladonna berries. And that's pretty much the plot. The other things that happen are accessory to the plot or don't really serve any purpose if not filling 2 or 3 pages. Like Signa needs to attend lessons to become a real lady so she can get a husband. I mean, for a girl that aches to be independent, that's pretty funny. Okay, hold on. I don't condemn Signa's will to find her life partner, but she talks about it as if it was basically her second obsession, aside from solving the case. From time to time, she mentions this book that her mother passed on to her, friendly reminder that her mother died when she was 2 months old, which is a girl's guide to good manners. You know, the things that were considered appropriate in Victorian England, like smile and be meek. Charlotte Bronte rolling in her grave. Yes, because listen, this novel is loosely inspired by Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, okay? Now, comparison with a literary masterpiece is unfair in my opinion, because it's like comparing apples with oranges. I believe commercial novels have their place in the reading world as much as literary novels, so enjoying one doesn't exclude enjoying the other as well. However, when the novel is blatantly trying to reproduce or recall a literary masterpiece like Jane Eyre, but doesn't have the means to do it, and while doing that it also takes itself so seriously, well, I have to do the dirty job. And it's not like Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which is a deliberate parody of a classic. This fucking book is pretentious. So, the first thing which went wrong is the recalling of Jane Eyre. Listen, the plot is more or less the same. It's like the donuts from Dunkin' Donuts. They look different, but they all taste the same. At least that's the Dunkin' Donuts that I tried in my life. I only tried them once, and I had that feeling. I mean, I got a taste of the one from my friend and it tasted the same as mine, but they were supposed to be different flavors. So anyway, first off, Jane is an orphan and lives a not so nice childhood until she comes of age and ends up at the Rochesters. Signa is also an orphan living a not so nice childhood because she goes from family to family until she ends up at her uncle, Elijah Hawthorne. Second, the manor in Jane Eyre is called Thornfield Hall. The manor in Belladonna is called Thorngrove. I mean, they didn't even try here. Third, Thornfield Hall is surrounded by mystery because there is a presence, an actual living person, Bertha Mason, the wife of Rochester. Thorngrove is also surrounded by mystery because there is a presence, the ghost of her aunt. Fourth, Thornfield Hall is set on fire by Bertha. Thorngrove's library is set on fire by Percy. I mean, you don't need me to explain to you that the similarities are striking and anybody can see that, right? Second, which is also tied to Jane Eyre, the Gothic feeling. The Gothic in Jane Eyre is correlated to Thornfield Hall and has a purpose, that is to say, it serves as a metaphor for Rochester's depression before Jane's arrival in his life. The Gothic in Belladonna, I don't know what's the purpose, to add mystery as a fashion choice, I have no idea, but it doesn't do any good to the novel in my opinion, because it strips it of the possibility of having funny moments, which in these romantasies are needed, in my opinion. Third, this book goes through a heavy identity crisis. Belladonna is a romantasy because there's a love story, but at the same time it's a love story between a human and a paranormal creature, in this case, death. But then it's a gothic novel because of the flair, which, as I said, doesn't really serve any metaphorical purpose and is only an aesthetic choice. And a badly developed one if you ask me. But it's also a murder mystery because the aunt died of poisoning and the cousin is also facing the same destiny, so the protagonist wants to solve the case. So what is it? None of the genres really prevail. This novel is neither fish nor meat. Fourth, subplots that don't go anywhere. The lessons with Marjorie, the governess, would have been a good chance to present a relationship between Signa and the governess, but they don't really bring us anywhere. Same goes for these tea parties with Signa's friends. Honestly, I could also live without them. The whole debut story, I don't know if it will be picked up again in Foxglove, but yeah, it was only decorative here. Fifth, predictability. Among other genres, the novel also wants to be a murder mystery, right? Well, there are two things which are, in my opinion, quite predictable. The first one is the identity of the murderer. Listen, there are only two plausible characters who may have done it. One is Percy, the other is Elijah's brother. But in one of them, the frustration is much more highlighted than in the other. Don't get me wrong, they're both frustrated because of how Elijah lets his business go to ruin, but Percy is evidently way more bothered than his uncle, and he also tries to blame it on other characters, so like 2 + 2 = 4. The second one is the identity of Silas, the stableman. He's the one who picks up Signa from Aunt Magda's house to bring her to Thorngrove, but throughout the story, he doesn't really interact with anybody other than Signa, so I was constantly thinking, I think that Silas is death. And I was fucking right! The stable boy that can't access the manor, around whom Signa gets horny, and whom nobody really sees, is death. Of course, of course. Sixth, death. We connect with the Silas theme and we analyze death now. So, death is depicted as like covered in shadows or something. I think he has a shadow cape, but anyway. His voice is described as the sound of a brook in which the girl wants to swim, whatever that means. But you know, it's not death as we may imagine death to be, like a reaper or a gloomy presence. No! This death is mellow. He's like an educator for Signa, a guardian, a fatherly figure. Yes, as fatherly as Jake Vanderberg is for Tiernan de Haas in Credence by Penelope Douglas. If you know, you know. Because death is present from the beginning. So while Signa is 2 months old, until she is 17. And, let's say she fucks him? No, literally, she sleeps with him. I can't, like, really, I can't. This novel was really bad. Like, I cannot fathom how anybody could write such a thing. Then I would rather read a mafia romance, which is bad, but I mean, I don't expect much from them, so I don't know. Well, whatever, let's go on. I'm losing my brain cells. I don't know much about publishing, but I have a master's degree in translation, okay? I don't work as a translator, but that's what I've studied in university, so I know what happens behind the curtains. Usually, when a translation is performed, there's a magical creature called the editor, who goes through the text, fixes orthography, grammar, but I'm guessing in the publishing of a new novel, they also have some power over the content. I mean, anybody who reviews can decide whether or not the thing will go through. Now my question. Who, right in their fucking mind, read that passage in which Signa and Death sleep together and thought, oh my, this is an amazing idea, why has nobody thought of it? Because maybe it's utterly stupid? Also, the protagonist is 17. Signa is 17. Let that sink in for a moment. Let that sink in. Has it sunk? A young adult with an actual scene. Also, an adult, well, I don't know if Death is to be regarded as adult, but yeah, with a minor. What the hell am I supposed to say here? I mean, like, whatever. And no, don't come at me and say, hey, you got that wrong, she's not 17, because why is she forced to live with any of her relatives until she gets access to her fortune? If she was of age, she wouldn't have to do that. She'd go directly to Foxglove Manor and live there happily. Also, Signa keeps telling Death that she hates him because every time he's around, hear me out, someone dies. Wow, every time Death is around, someone dies. Our detective ghost whisperer Signa came to this conclusion and is angry about it. And Signa wonders why Death is so obsessed with her, and he confesses that he's usually very bored and watching Signa doing things entertains him. Yeah, somebody read or watched Death Note, I think. Unfortunately, this death doesn't dissolve when sparing lives on purpose, otherwise we'd have gotten rid of him and the book would have lasted less than 100 pages, to my delight. But you can't have everything in life. Seventh and final thing, Signa Farrow. No. Unbearable. She's an idiot with no sense of humor whatsoever. I'm sorry. First off, she claims to be bothered by death, but it's Belladonna berries every other day to summon him. When Silas makes jokes, she gets immediately offended. Then she has this social clumsiness, which, I mean, did we really need it? I understand that she was secluded and she went from guardian to guardian and she had a bad childhood and maybe she doesn't know how to behave with other people, but I'm losing my lungs. Okay, so there's this scene in which Signa finds Blythe's room and she meets her cousin for the first time. She asks her if the room in front of hers is occupied by anybody, and Blythe replies that the room belongs to her mother, so it's impossible that somebody lives in there. And Signa, with the same empathy of Dudley Dursley in the first scene of the Order of the Phoenix, corrects her grammar by saying, "You mean belonged, right?" Blythe reacts with a "go eat shit" more or less, and I cannot blame her. And then she is a living contradiction. She follows the rules of a book her mother gave to her to be able to find a husband. She learns that she needs manners, to be meek and sweet, and to always wear a smile. At the same time, if Silas says, "I'll help you because you haven't been on a horse for a long time and it's dangerous," she gets all angry because "I can do it myself." And lastly, she learns that she accidentally saved Blythe's life when her aunt passed. But what I haven't told you is how her aunt passed. She thinks to herself that she's this angel who at least saved one life, and I was like, yeah, you forgot the tiny detail that you pushed your aunt and she hit a frame with her head, but I guess that doesn't count, right? Oh my. I don't deserve this, do I? Anyway, is this the idea of a strong, independent woman that we have today? And I repeat, I don't mean that they have to give up on finding the love of their lives. We have plenty of female figures in literature who do that without giving up on personal growth and on the defense of one's ideal, like the protagonist of the novel from which this agglomerate of pages takes inspiration, Jane Eyre, or Elizabeth Bennet, or the Dashwood sisters. I'm done with Belladonna. Seriously, it's not like the other books. I trashed them and then bought the sequels. I haven't bought Foxglove, and honestly, I don't intend to do it. I don't have any interest in knowing how the story goes on. No, I will spare that. If you've read the book and enjoyed it, please let me know down in the comments what you liked and what not. Remember to subscribe to my channel and click on the like button to support my journey through trashy literature. As usual, thank you so much for watching. Be safe, take care of yourself, and read good books. Ciao!